You're watching HNL. I'm Ursula, confident voice guest, Lorraine Jenks, an environmental activist and also known as the Green Queen. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Ursula.
It is
So excited to be here.
I am so excited to have you here, especially because you have such an important voice with such an important message. And can you please just share some of the big moments in finding your voice in this space that has gotten you up to here?
I think everyone must study what they think about a lot, what they think about before they go to sleep, because I think everyone has a passion. Often you don't acknowledge that. And since I was a tiny little girl, I've always fought for the underdog. I used to make my dad stop the car if I saw somebody hurting an animal and go and stop that. And he used to say, they'll beat me up. And I say, yeah, but the animal's more important. So my entire life, and I'm not a Buddhist, but the Buddhists believe that everything is about alleviating the suffering of any sentient being. That's anything that can feel something. And it even goes beyond people and animals. You know, destroying a forest, it doesn't feel, but there is hurt, something there's being hurt. And I think sometimes the universe puts you where you're supposed to be, because when I was 69, I had it dawned on me that I had to do something different, and I just walked out of where I was. And the journey started again by accident. So much of what I've done has been by accident. And I think if you're doing the right thing for the right reasons, things come to you. It's actually quite remarkable. And I did my gap year. After I left school, I went to London in the middle of the flower power era and Mary Quant. And then we wanted to get to California, my husband and I. In those days, you had to do it a long way around. So we went to Canada for a year, watched the moon landing. Then we did a long trek through America with a camper down to Los Angeles in the middle of the hippie era, right?
Love it.
When marijuana was not illegal. I worked for accountants who were stoned every day. They used to come into work in the morning and go, like, wow, man, like far out. In LA, if you don't mind. Oh. And then Nixon made it illegal. And we had to grow it in our wardrobes. But I worked for the Environmental Protection Agency. And all the trees were dying in LA, for example. I was already concerned about overfishing and deforestation just because of the people that I was mixing with. And we realized, they called it acid rain.
Yes.
The research that we did with the Environmental Protection Agency proved that it was the emissions from the cars. And that's how it all started. And those were the very first restaurants that served organic food, all the stuff that a group. And I don't know, I'm a teacher by profession, a Montessori teacher, did a bit of that. And somehow, we opened a new school, actually, Brand, the first Montessori primary school in Africa. And I ended up being the procurement manager for the Southern Sun Hotel Group, this massive hotel chain with 82 hotels. I hate the corporate environment, but it was a good job. It was interesting, and I had 2 kids at school. So I would entertain myself by visiting factories, because you can't just do tenders and you're in and out. 15 very, very long years. And I tried to get them to be more aware of where things were coming from. Like if they used teak, did they ask which forest it came from? You know, if it came from Zimbabwe, it was probably illegally logged. I tried to get them to stop using phosphates in the cleaning chemicals in Drakensberg, that sort of thing. And they would pat me on my head And they'd say, oh, I let a bunny hug.
Little bunny
hugging the
hugger.
trees. He's worried about the trees. You know, and suddenly one day we built a convention centre, which was the first big green project, and I was on that committee. And I installed recycling. There were no recycle bins. It was such early days, people hadn't heard of it. And I did this wonderful report of how much money I'd saved, all the Sandton hotels, including the Sandton City. We didn't realise that we were somehow involved with their waste management as well. And sent my report upstairs and no one looked at it. I left in a huff, and that frustration gives me the energy I've got today. And since then, I did some training with Al Gore and several other studies that I did with the United Nations on how to choose a green product, for example, eco-labeling, and energy, measuring energy, all those sort of things. And then things just start coming at you. I did nothing. Nothing that I do today as I sit here now is planned. It all just fell into my lap.
But you did something. There's definitely an energy and a conviction in what you do. I want to know about, you say, little bunny hugger, and it feels like you get discredited when that happens. What are the challenges you have found in expressing your voice?
Exactly that, getting teased. I have to say, in the last 2 years, doing a bit, it's absolutely phenomenal. The switch and the awareness all of a sudden is phenomenal. Not just the awareness, people are actually starting to do something. Not enough, not nearly enough. And of course the deniers are, the oil barons are just getting bigger and bigger with their counter arguments. But that was really hard. The very first award I won was for, I went up to the stage and he said to me, we're giving you this because you're an ankle biter. He said, you just never give up, you just keep nipping quietly in the background until people say.
That is a lot of wisdom right there. An ankle biter. You just keep going and going and going. So what is your true north, your why that keeps you biting those ankles? What's your why?
It's changed. It's changed enormously. It was being too much of an empath. I'm still an empath. If you're born an empath, it's a horrible burden, let me tell you something, because you feel everything for everything. I don't care about the humans who understand what's going on. I actually don't care for them at all. So my focus now is my grandson. I worry about him and his future. And I still believe we can choose the future. Lots of my talks about choose the future you want. We have enormous power if people just work up and understand what to do. And it's shifted from, there's climate change, which I specialize in, and I'm not a scientist or an engineer or anything, but I know the facts and I know where to find, if you ask me a question, I know where to find the answer on if it's a statistic you want. But then we've got what we call ecocide. So you can't talk about climate change in isolation. You have to talk about what we call ecocide now. And eco means life, and side means to kill. So we're killing our home. You know, we're wiping out. I think I've just read the Wildlife Foundation. We, in the last 50 years, have lost 70% of our wildlife. Oh. So I feel for that. I feel for what the animals stuff that can't speak for itself. Human beings can jolly well speak for themselves. They can stop buying plastic, you know, and so I think that if something keeps me awake and upsets me terribly, it's seeing a picture of an orangutan starving to death in Indonesia. So I will fight for that till my last breath.
That is beautiful. I'm sitting here in goosebumps. We're going to come back after the break. But I want to leave us on that note of we create the future that we want. Thank you, Lorraine.
We've put all the great High Noon live shows in one place for your convenience. Look out for HNL's greatest moments. Next, make a date to catch us live right here on LinkedIn. On Mondays, catch Ntsikim Mkhize with business, how-to and mentorship. On Tuesdays, Ursula Botha with confidence and presence. Wednesdays, see Nikki Bush dancing with disruption, women empowerment and reinvention. On Thursdays, Nico Stain with storytelling, structure and presentation. And Fridays, Joni Petty presents Sleep, Resilience and Bouncing Forward. Watch High Noon live on LinkedIn. Weekdays at 12, South African Standard Time.
You're watching HNL. I'm Ursula Botha, and we are speaking to Lorraine Jenks, environmental activist. And I have a question about how do you keep your finger on the pulse with everything that's happening in sustainability and the environment?
I know you're interested in the environment, and I know you're worried about climate change, and I'm warning you. I'm warning you. When you start taking a real interest in it, it is addictive. It becomes a compulsion, and the thing is, you love it. You wake up in the morning and I just can't wait to get started again. So I read up stuff all the time because it's evolving. That's why I really love my topic as a speaker, because it changes virtually sometimes by the week. Something's new, something's been invented, something's been stopped. So I read everything, listen to webinars. I live on Facebook, not for Facebook, because there's some amazing links of people who are doing stuff. So you get the news slightly before everybody else does. And I don't read the books anymore because they're very much of blah, 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 the same old same. And then I used to go to whenever there was any kind of a conference or whatever, or in London there would be a big World Travel Organization, for example, and people that support certified. I don't do that so much anymore because there's so much. As I said to you, this big wake up. There is something every single day now. There's still areas that are not properly addressed. One of them is the supply chain, sustainable supply chain, which really surprises me. That really surprises me. So I think just consume, and ask questions, you know, and always wonder. If you see something, wonder where it comes from. And that's one of my. You said what are the hacks that I use? There's some associations and websites that are always, Drawdown is one of them. Follow Drawdown, follow Greenpeace, because they're slightly ahead. And these stupid children that are gluing themselves to the street, it's wrong. You know, in my hippie days, we protested against Vietnam, women's lib, civil rights, the environment. We were never destructive and we were never violent. But we were a nuisance. You can be a nuisance without damaging things and without, you know, I think obstructing the traffic, you're making people angry. So rather than win them over, you're actually putting them on the other side because they don't see your protest for what it is, you know. Yeah,
So what are the gaps that you are currently, because there's so much, what are the gaps that you are focusing on?
That's, you know, I love that question. People like me have been speaking about climate change and ecocide, and we sort of run workshops and we do training and we write articles and focus on what the problem is now with this new big awareness. There's something called ESG, which has always been there. It means environment, social and governance. It's always been there. But the environmental side of it has been very badly neglected. So what's happening, I think a lot of CEOs are actually narcissistic psychopaths. I mean, I shouldn't say that. You can take it back.
We can't take it back. We can't take it back.
But they don't actually, there's just money. It's just about profit and money, profit and money, profit and money. So the environmental side is being neglected. So now they're being forced, and their investors and their customers and even some of the employees are demanding that they take more attention to that. And what I'm finding is they are trying. These big companies are being thrown in the deep end and said, here's ESG. Now you've got to start monitoring, measuring, reporting so that people can find your statistics. And they don't actually understand the reason why. They don't really, because they've never been interested in it. So there's this enormous gap that I am finding. I'm being called in to talk about exactly that. I just spoke to a huge, big summit for the insurance industry, explaining the basics of in plain, ordinary English, none of the jargon and all this geek speak that's being bandied about all over the place. And they welcome that because it gives them, they don't really understand why the climate is changing. Because in geography, lots of people never did geography. You know, I talked to 1,000 people who were buyers for the government and the municipality, and realized a lot of them hadn't done geography at school, so they didn't even know how the planet works, how the atmosphere works, how the CO2 is getting into the atmosphere, when heat used to bounce out, when the sun beat down, excess heat used to bounce out. Now with this blanket of greenhouse gases, it can't. It's bouncing up and down and warming the planet. So that's the sort of basic, I call it the fundamental principles of those words that are being used so much.
There's so much then you were saying about the jargon. So what words are accessible for us?
Sustainable means to leave things the way they are, which is good, you know, but it's not actually enough, you know, because the way they are at the moment is not working.
Yeah.
It's, you know, we're destroying everything, and the pollution is actually getting worse. Then they started talking about regeneration, which started in agriculture, which means if you go somewhere and you do something there, when you leave, it should be slightly better even than when you moved in. And certainly with farming, when you leave, that soil should be in as good a state. I hate to say, I think is to keep plastic in the cycle for as long as possible. The concept is a good idea. If you've got a raw material, try and keep it in circulation. Instead of, we used to extract, use, throw away. Then we extract, then we recycled a bit and threw away. Now we're trying to extract, keep it going round and round as long as we possibly can, and then throw it away. So a lot of it is making people stop and think. And then there's so many acronyms going around. Oh my goodness, SDGs and LCAs and KPIs and these poor people, these acronyms being thrown at them. People speak in acronym as though it's English. Or
As English.
You know, lots of the speakers sound as though they're reading their master's thesis, you know. It just, people don't absorb it. I use pictures, they must see the pictures.
We are going to come back after the break. There is so much to speak about, and after the break, we have more for you.
You've had a bad day.
Many times have you sat in a presentation or meeting, in person or online, where you literally want to tear your hair out because it is so boring? If you happen to be doing it virtually, you've got to sit there with your camera on, sort of smiling, looking into the camera because you know other people are looking at you, but your mind is just whirling, and what you want to do is switch your camera off and go and get a peanut butter sandwich. I want you to think back to the last time you presented information, either virtually or in person. Think about what it would do for your career if you could present information in a really compelling, effective, motivating, inspiring way. In this module of maximizing your presentations in person and virtually, we're going to look at who your audience is, how you craft a message, and there are a couple of things that you can do that make your presentations so much more effective if you just know how to understand who your audience is, what you want them to think, feel, and do as a result of your presentation. So how can we ensure that when you're presenting information, you do it in a way that engages the audience? So please click on the button below to ensure that you enhance your presentation impact, be it in person or virtually.
You're watching HNL. I'm Ursula Botha, and we're speaking to Lorraine Jenks about the very important subject of the earth, the environment. And here's a big question. What can we do? What hacks are there that we can do to keep the green economy?
Yeah. It's really no good us going out there and talking about the problem, which is too many people do. You need solutions, and you need actionable solutions. Something that you can go home and start doing immediately. So there are two approaches. There's what they must do and what you must do, or what we must do. So what they must do are the politicians and business. You can jolly well tell them that's increase carbon tax. They know exactly what sustainability is, the ESG, all those. I'm not going to go into that. We know what they must do. They must look at the energy there and water and all the rest. What we must do is boycott. There was a tiny little boycott in the States, very quiet, for one of the shampoos. Very quiet. And people didn't like the ingredients. I tell you, within weeks, huge big company changed the ingredients of that shampoo. Just because enough people said, I'm not buying this anymore. We changed baby foods here that had genetically modified foods in contents in it. Not that that in itself is bad, but the chemicals that are used to grow those crops are appalling. But what we can do is every time, I can't believe people don't do that. I grew up on a farm, and I'm very glad for that, because I understand, people who grew up on a farm understand where things come from. You must say to yourself, where does this come from? You know? And then if I have to talk to an audience of people who haven't done science at school, and as I said, haven't done geography at school, I think I'm a Montessori teacher, which is just, I'm so thankful for that, because it's a whole different way of teaching something. I say to that audience, imagine you're holding the hand of a little child, and he says to you, Daddy, where does your cell phone come from? Or where does my new t-shirt come from? Take his hand and walk him through the life of that product. So take him right to where they extract the raw materials. And he's going to say to you, why are these little children digging in a muddy river? What are they digging for? And you're going to have to say metals. Metals for some of the equipment that we use. And then how far does it travel to get to the factory? And the factory, he's going to say to you, but why are these people working such long hours every day? And look at all the pollution. Look how they're polluting the river. And then he's going to say, look how everything's packed in plastic. And it's getting moved by trucks instead of by trains to the next place. Then during its use, the whole way through, you're going to look at the environment, look at energy, water, and the waste are the three big things that you look at, which can be reduced from the very beginning right through to the end. And then you start looking at the impact on people and the environment right through right through. How is it distributed? During its use, does it carry on polluting? Is it causing allergies? And right through to how do you get rid of it, which is very important. So can it go back in, or does it get thrown away? And then I've got a picture of all those products where they end up. And that little boy is going to see all this pollution, these clogged rivers, and he's going to say, goodness, Daddy, you knew where it would end up, and you bought it anyway. And you will think every time you buy something, you're going to say, gosh, I wonder where this comes from. And that would change everything.
Just asking that question connects us. Where does it come from? And I love that, because also gives me the responsibility. What do I do with it when I'm done with the cell phone? Because they break after 2 years.
Yeah.
What am I doing with it? Because that needs to go somewhere. You have stories. You come from the hippie times. In your journey, what's your fail moment? The
fail moment was thrown at me, because we did 33,000 people use my websites a month up to. So, I mean, we never expected that. It was supposed to be a hobby. When I left the hotel industry, it was supposed to be something to do. I never ever dreamt I would be doing all these things. So everything's ticking along really nicely. And then we build exhibitions where we display all we don't sell anything at all from our two websites. It's like a yellow pages. We just home would look like, fully furnished with only eco-friendly products, or a hotel. Ticking along really, then COVID hit us, which was fine, and a lot of my work's in tourism, so we were a bit clubbed with that. And then we had a team of 5, I lost 3, not to COVID. I lost 2 to cancer out of the blue, and one had a stroke and just said, you know, he didn't want to work anymore. So we're down to 2. That was unexpected, and that's been really hard on top of COVID. So my little technical whiz, she's an absolute whiz, she lives on a farm. She manages the 2 hotel stuff and the green stuff websites. She's doing absolutely remarkable. The 2 of us are running it alone. So I really have to decide now, am I going to employ a whole new PA? Or maybe but sell my 2 websites while they're on they're still doing very well, remarkably, yeah. So that was my unexpected, I don't know what you would.
You're in a crossroad.
Yes,
in a crossroad.
And it's almost forced me to stop and think. I mean, I sit in my bath and I think, hell man, I really should be playing bingo and knitting baby booties, but
you have too much energy for that. You have too much energy. I have one last question for you. What advice would you give to your younger self?
My word, I don't know. I would have, if I'd known you could, I was really excruciatingly shy. And if I'd known there were things that you could do to boost confidence. When I say I'm 79 now, I started this when I was 69, yeah, 69, and I've won 23 awards in those 10 years at 79. Wow. If I think back, I mean, I'm perfectly happy. I love being on my own, very independent. I travel a lot, especially with my work. I've just been flown to Azerbaijan. I was flown to Scotland for COP26. So I'm busy and I love what I do. But I share my flat with my son. We just split the costs completely. Got a very, very big flat. I never see him. But I think women must be more tolerant of their husbands. I mean, I can't believe I'm saying this. And I've had 3. And I knew I would marry them all again, actually, for a 10-year contract maybe. You know, stick with them through thick and thin. Sometimes they're naughty and just stick with them, they're okay. Because when you're old one day, you want that friend that knew you when you were 20 or when you were 18. So I really don't mind being on my own. I have to say that again. But it would be nice to have somebody around who really, really still knows you. Even if he's just a neighbor, you know, he doesn't have to be your husband anymore. So that's what I would tell my younger self.
Stick with him. Lorraine, where can people connect with you and who want to get in touch for your important message?
They can just info@hotelstuff.co.za or my phone number, which is over there. Just, I'll speak to anybody. I'll speak to your church, your big corporation, because they pay. Yeah. Yeah, and they're whole, you know, such a vast subject. Tell me what aspect is of most interest to you or your people in your network, and then we'll focus on that for you.
So let's spread this important message, get in touch with Lorraine, and thank you. Thank you for being with us, and thank you for everybody watching.
Thanks, Ursula. And Nico, thank you. You're such a star.
Nico's the best. We have the best team here.
We do.
We do.
Yes.
Goodbye, everybody.
Hello there, my name is Nico Steyn and I'm coming to you from our little studio, which is a pop-up studio in Johannesburg, South Africa. It's called Tycoon Tribe, and what we have been doing to help people move online digitally is to convert the studio into a system that really works well and is half automated. So literally with a remote control, I'm able to run, for example, software such as Video Express.
1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4.
So what this crew work very efficiently, and the presenter can be in control of the switching by themselves as they go through the system and roll video in the background whenever they need it. So that is a really handy tool to have. We've used it for seminars, we use it for webinars, we also have people do interviews live like this, and of course it is completely global, completely digital, and a lot of fun because it is so easy to use. So we're operating in the entrepreneurial space and we're having a lot of fun to help businesses and SMEs to really get their message out there in this new digital age. And thanks to software such as Video Express, we're able to be slick and ahead of the pack. You can check out our website at mybigsmartup.com.